Faith is a retro-style indie horror game developed by Airdorf Games where you play as John Ward, a priest haunted by nightmares of a failed exorcism in the 80s. The game has gone to receive critical acclaim by fans and video game journalists alike for its genuinely horrifying atmosphere. But what is it that makes Faith scary? How is it that we can feel just as scared playing an 8-bit pixel indie game as we do with more realistic, higher developed and influential horror games? In this introductory video, I'll explain the methods I'll be using to analyze and deconstruct the anatomy of Faith's horror. A quick disclaimer: Faith is a game based on interpretations. The story is ambiguous enough that the clues it provides can lead to multiple interpretations, which means my answers could be just as right or as wrong as yours. The only way we can get definite answers is by asking Airdorf. However, that eliminates the aura of mystery surrounding the series, and I doubt he wants to be bothered constantly about these things. Visual analysis is the practice of analyzing the visual components of an artwork in order to understand the intentions of the artist. Why did they use this color? Why did they use this perspective? Why did they work in this genre? Artists don't just add details to make their work look nicer, they want to hint towards a deeper meaning. There are 3 general methods of visual analysis that art historians use. First is the formal properties. This refers to the physical qualities of the work, what is being displayed in front of you. This series will mainly rely on using formal analysis, as this is where most of Faith's horror comes from. Next is subject matter, the content of the work. Is there a story that the piece is trying to portray? Take for example Leonardo's The Last Supper, the subject matter being a scene from the Bible. Last is historical context. What was the world like while this artwork was being made? Who paid for its creation? Who was the intended audience? By taking the time to analyze art, we can understand the intentions of the artist and develop a deeper understanding of the work as a whole. On to formal analysis. As I've said before, you are solely observing the physical aspects of the work. Some things you should be focusing on are scale, composition, pictorial space, form, line, color, light, tone, texture, and pattern. Now, it might seem at first glance that Faith's stylistic simplicity prevents it from being analyzed like an intellectual academic art piece. However, there's still many details to uncover that work together to form the composition. To practice, we'll go into the tutorial stage and analyze John's sprite model. I recommend starting off with an overarching question that you can refer back to. It helps to keep your observations organized and your arguments consistent. In this example, I'll ask, what makes John's sprite so effective? Immediately, we should notice the choice of color for John. This deep blue is much more passive and easier to the eyes compared to the apple and the demon, which both effectively grab the player's attention because of their brighter hues against the black background. But that isn't to say that John's blue fails to catch the player's eyes in a similar way. In fact, this blue perfectly balances between standing out from the various environments in the game while not actively unsettling the player. Referring back to the apple and demon, they capture the player's attention because their tints and shades of red are much more energetic, also being warmer colors compared to John's relatively cooler, composed blue. That is why, instinctively, we feel safe with John. Another thing to point out is the pixel of white on John's sprite. This is a clerical color which priests and clergy members wear outside of church to be easily identified. In addition to its intended purpose, its inclusion to John's sprite provides visual clarity to the game. The white color prevents the blue from merging with the black background so that we don't lose our focus on John. This can be seen in places where light is obscured, making John's model difficult to follow along with. The speck of white stands out, contrasting with the dark shades, which gives the player a reference point to follow. We've been looking a lot at color theory and psychology so far, but now let's shift our focus onto the bodily details of John. From his sprite, we can tell that John is standing upright, his body is rigid. His form is angular, which gives us a sense of strength with each step he takes. An example of angular form can be seen in Jacques-Louis David's neoclassical painting, Oath of the Horatii. The men in this painting represent strength, and we can physically tell by their upright and rigid form. There is a clear sense of determination in these men, while the women take on more curvilinear forms, which are associated with emotions and a lack of strength. We see both of these forms throughout the game to complement John's mental and physical states. And while we're still on the topic of physical form, there is another technique I want to highlight, that being contrapposto. Italian for counterpoise. It's a technique that focuses on shifting the figure's body weight onto one leg in order to create a seemingly natural and dynamic pose. Looking at an idle frame of John, it's as if he's about to take a step forward. This leg is bearing the weight of his body, while his back leg is much more relaxed and about to follow the motion of stepping forward, which is further complemented by the swaying of his arms, torso, and head. That is why John's walking animation looks so human. It's also important to note the practice of pictorial form, the illusion of creating a three-dimensional space. Despite the visual limitations of the game, Errordorf has made it seem like John is walking through a 3D environment with the help of contrapposto. We've been analyzing a lot of cool details so far, but now let's refer back to the overarching question I asked at the start of the analysis. What makes John's sprite so effective? It's effective because the choice of color is passive and makes the player feel comfortable. It's effective because the body displays strength through angular form. It's effective because it feels human, it feels natural, it feels dynamic. This is visual analysis, the breaking down of the composition in order to understand the sum of its parts. That is what this series will focus on.